Okay, YouTubers, today we're going to replace this battery on this Hadean. There's this Bank 12 that's been giving me some problems. It's 3.88 volts and it varies dramatically. I've tried charging it up to the rest of the pack, but it's just been declining. So today I'm going to do a video walkthrough of how to replace a bank of cells. And this is going to be Bank 12 on this Hadean. So let's get started. Alright guys, for the Evolve Hadean battery replacement, we're going to replace a bank of 4 cells. You're going to need these insulating rings. This is an Amazon item. You're going to need obviously your whatever your battery type is for the 21700. I've got the Lishen LR2170LAs. They're harder to find these days. I got some legit ones through AliExpress. They were like less than $2 each, but shipping was like 25. But they're legit. They're charging right now in this bank. And then you'll need some of these pure nickel strips. This is from Mboards, and they are 4P 21700. These are 0.2 millimeter pure nickel strips. I think the OE strips with the Hadean are 0.3, but these have a lot of surface area, so I've been running them with no issues, and I've created a little template to be able to match the OE that we'll need to install later. So let's get rolling. I'm going to take the deck off first. All right, let's get rolling. I just use one of these extensions and it seems to work really good. I can just zip these things out really quick. I would imagine if it was under warranty, you would have already went through Evolve. So these are the folks that either bought a used unit or are out of warranty and are having some variations on your cells that are causing it to turn off into shutdown mode early. It's usually one bank of cells that's going into shutdown mode. So if it gets below, I think it's like 2.7 volts, as a safety mode, the board will shut off and catch some people off guard if you don't know you've got a bad lower bank of cells versus some of the other banks. These things don't have, from what I understand, a good battery management system, and so basically some cells can get a higher charge than others and things can get out of balance. So I have brought banks up to the state of charge of the other cells, doing it manually. I've got a little charging unit here, and I've created like a little separate system to be able to charge a bank if I need. I'll show you guys that later. But I know that the bank is dead. Now I'm going to remove this. Not dead, but it's lower than the rest of them, and I got some bad cells in there. So we're going to replace this, and then let me get to the next part. Pull it out. Okay, so for this next part, this is the battery. Obviously the whole battery unit is encased in here. I would like to get the speed controller separated because there's some cables in here that can get basically a little difficult when you keep it on. Okay, so that's loose. I've got some connectors. Basically, it just has a quick connection here to the battery's management system here. So, some debris and some grass. I need to clean this out. One less thing to deal with. So now what I have to do is carefully remove the connectors for the power supply, the charging cable, all right here. But before I do that, I'm going to see if I can push this out a little bit. This plastic tool. Okay, now with those disconnected, just move them out of the way. All right, so here's the trick. Basically, you're going to push the bottom of this out. And then with everything disconnected, it'll slide out nicely. I got my binding in the way. There we go. Move this out of the way. All right, I guess you didn't have to remove those connectors. It's been a while. It's been about a year since I had to take this thing out. I'm gonna move this out of the way. Okay, so we got the battery now that we can start unscrewing to get to the cells. Won't bore you with this part. All right, so now that we got this deck unscrewed, we can go ahead and crack open the seal. This is the LED portion that lights up the logo. And the way they designed this, I'm not a fan. Basically, there's some wires on this side that get really pinched down. That's the way they were designed from the factory. Whereas this side, you have a little notch. So we're just gonna unpeel this, and then this is for the LEDs on the bottom, which they don't sell separately, believe it or not. I had several LEDs go out on one of these sides, and they have to sell you the whole thing, which is ridiculous. They don't even sell the replacement strip. So we're going to remove those connectors, and they're also going to remove this one. And then I had previously replaced a battery bank on here last year, and so I'll show you where that is as well. All right, so now what we can do We can flip this over, and then we can slowly push out this unit, which contains the cells, carefully. All right. So we got our flex pack here of the Lishen. These are LR2170LAs, and I replaced a bank last year. I additionally covered this strip with some electrical safe tape, and it looks like this one got smashed back. I'll have to replace this, but this is the bank that I had replaced right here last year, these four. We're gonna have to use the original cradles, so don't tear those out or tear those up too bad. And then walk you through how to get everything removed, desoldered, and then we'll have to spot weld some new batteries in here with our tabs. So obviously we want to be careful we're not going to short anything out. I'm going to cut back my tape because I'm going to need to replace this part, smashed back. But all of the banks are labeled. I'll show you here in a minute. And this is the bank that I had replaced right here previously. So we're basically going to be desoldering the bank that's bad from here and then resoldering it with this template that we've created from Mboards. It's the same profile for the most part, it's pretty close. And spot weld these new batteries into place. All right, so bank 12 was the bank that I was having the bad cells on, B12 here. We're gonna desolder. It's basically a tab under here. The battery tab extends from here over to the middle section. So there's your plus, there's your minus. And so we'll be just desoldering both of these here for this bank of 4 cells. Alright, got a Hakko 808 desoldering gun, fume extraction unit, and we're just going to start sucking the solder off of these pads. We may have to use a soldering iron also to help assist move things along because it's such a big pad. I don't like using heat guns just because I just don't want to warp anything on this board. It's going to take a while. Alright guys, so we've desoldered as much as we can. I recommend using a solder sucker and then something like a larger soldering iron that has a nice fat tab like that, and then you can just kind of work it and then suck it at the same time. Now, what we'll have to do is we're going to have to take this tab off here, and then that's going to help. We'll be able to remove this tab a lot easier from this pad once we remove this, which is tacked to these this dead bank here. We need to save these black. This whole black holder has 4 of these little posts that come through the board, and we'll have to save as much as we can because we have to reuse the cell holder, because there's no aftermarket option really that's the same thin profile that allows these cells to sit so tight together. So I'm going to try to carefully, very carefully pry off the tabs with a micro screwdriver. Really don't want to short circuit anything, got to be super careful. So I'm going to see if I can go between the cells and try to get this off. Or at least be able to get it high enough so I can cut through it. I gotta put some safety glasses on. I don't want anything flying in my eye. So once I'm able to get a nice corner lifted, then I can carefully remove these spot welded tabs. The whole point is to get the cell bank out of here without ripping it up too much, because like I said, we need to reuse these black holders here. Should be using non-conductive tools for this, ideally. But this thing, the metal just bites so much better. Okay. Now you see we have a nice flap that we can cut off, and then as we heat it up, we can remove it. And actually, it's going to remove pretty easy right now. But I don't want to peel it off too hard. I might even want to be able to keep as much as I can on. Let's take a look underneath. Gotta switch hands. nice and hot. And then slightly peel it back. You know, it looks like that bottom tab is starting to peel off. I gotta be super careful. I'm gonna cut this back as much as I can. All right, now we just need to get this one down here off. It's gonna be a little bit trickier. I think in my original swap, I did end up, I think, cutting a few, but I ended up putting them back as best I could. Ouch. I ended up cutting these to push them through. I'll see what I need to do. It's been a while. I just cut them and pushed them out. I think that was the plan. Did I Dremel them or cut them? I don't remember. Been a while. I think I might have Dremeled them down or sanded them down low enough so they punched through originally. There it goes. There it goes. So I sliced them low enough to be able to pop them out easy. And then I should just be able to work on this next part here. We're gonna have to get these cells. There's another tab that they're soldered to or tack welded to. We're gonna have to get this one out next. And then when we want to put it back in, we'll pop them through and then we'll add some glue. It'd be cool to be able to spot weld them in place, but that's impossible. I'm gonna have to get this one disconnected. So that'll be my next soldering. I'm gonna have to work on that one for a bit. I'll be back. All right, guys, we are up to the next step, which is to use these 0.2 millimeter pure nickel strips for the 21700 batteries from Mboards. So the best way to get them to the template that we need to be able to fit in this slot, and they're going to be fitting in this slot here, and then they're going to be bending around and then up over onto this tab. There. So let me get the dimensions that I found that work the best. All right. So they come like this, and we're gonna cut it down like this. Okay? So the new dimension is going to be, it's about 27.6 millimeters height, and then about 20, let's see, got some battery problems in this thing. About 24 millimeters for the top tab to fit through that slot. And then what I do is I cut in the sides here, and then this will fit nice and flush right through the slot and give you the perfect height when we start tack welding the new cells on here. All right. We'll need 2 of those. And then we're going to tack weld, which is the next step. So I brought, before I disassembled this whole pack, it had been charged up to 100%. It's kind of your call. Basically, if you don't want to work on a fully charged pack, just for fear that you're going to short circuit something, and you could use whatever percent battery life that you left out, what you left out on when you last rode the board. you just have to make sure that the new cells that you're charging are going to be matching that same voltage. So for example, if this was a 50% state of charge, when I stopped writing it, I would check my remote, see what the cell bank voltages are, and then I'd charge up the new 4 ones, the new 4 cells, which I'm charging up here, to that specification. So since I'm working on a fully charged pack, I'm going to go 100% on the new cells to match voltages. And these things are about done. So next step will be spot welding the batteries, and then we'll be using our little holders that we've saved, that we salvaged. And they'll go in like that. Our new tabs will go one on the outside and then one on the inside. And then we'll be back in action. And we make sure we don't forget our insulating rings as well, that we'll be putting on the outside of the tabs, or the outside of the batteries. All right, we'll move on to the next step. So one thing that I forgot to mention is I had a heck of a time to figure out how to cut these tabs. Originally I was using a grinder, and it was so hard. This stuff was bending, and it was because it's pretty thin. So I did end up finding, these are some old hobby tin snips that I have. These are Dynamite ones, and they have a nice curve on them, and these cut through these nickel strips like no problem. You can find these tin snips probably on Amazon, or any hobby shop would have this brand. I've had these for years, but usually if they're for like cutting Lexan RC car bodies or plastic, that type of thing. But they work great for cutting these tin snips, and this is what I'm going to be using if I ever have to replace another pack again. It's quick and it's smooth. All right. Okay, spot welding batteries. This is the unit that I got. CC foot pedal portable spot welder. This thing it worked really great. It can go really high on the voltage. They call them gears. And maximum thickness for these, it says from 0.1 to 0.3 millimeters. Now we gotta make sure we're setting the gear, basically the output, correctly, otherwise it could blow a hole right through these strips. All right, we're going to be practicing spot welding on one of the old cells that we pulled out, and using some of the old nickel strip that we used to cut off to get our template. So it just gives you a good feel of what voltage you should be at with your spot meter, your spot welder. Safety glasses. I don't want any flying sparks burning my retina. So apparently this thing is not supposed to be plugged in when you use it, when it's charging, it says. So we got the foot pedal down here, and then we got these short leads. That was one of the only feedbacks that they had, but it works fine. Let me give you some extra tips also. I'm gonna turn this thing up. Let's turn it up to, and I think they said when the voltage got to 7, it was time to charge this thing. So let me set it to like 60, whatever that means. I'm going to apply these 2 probes next to each other in the center. Well, got some old tab material there. I'm going to apply some downward force, and also at a little bit of an angle, so these tips kind of go side by side like that. Get your fingers off of any metal, and then you're going to push the foot pedal 3 seconds or 2 seconds. And then it'll make some dots. You can feel if it's going to be strong enough, which it's not. So this thing either needs to be charged or we need to go up higher on the setting. It's at the highest setting, 90. That's probably the setting we're going to use. Gives nice welds all the way across. Can't pull it off either, so that's a good sign. I have all my cells ready. My insulating rings on them. Put them in their cradles. And then we're going to be putting the template right over the 4 of them like that. I'm going to line them up and then I'm going to push it down and just go right down on top of it. Just watching my alignment, because you don't want to mess this up after all the work you've done to get these templates made and these batteries lined up. So we just verify that the little slots are going to be the spots that we're going to be welding right above, between. We're going to hit it 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to do each one probably several times to get several strong welds on it. I'd like to start with the end. There's a good weld. Drop down right below it. There's a good one right there. I'm going to go back after I walk this line here. That one's not grabbing. All right, so after spot welding, I had a heck of a time with this one cell. It just wasn't doing any spot welding, so I just had no more, I had to cut that out basically so I can do another tab over it and then combine it with the other ones. All right, guys, ended up spot welding these things. I had no issues on the negative side. I was able to spot weld them really clean. The positive side, man, I had one battery that just did not want to stick. And so I had to cut out the OE tab that I put, well, the replacement tab, because I had no metal left. And then I had to put another tab just on top of it and then spot weld it together. But that's the first time that happened. I think the issue was you got to really push these tabs down so there's no air gap underneath. Otherwise, you're going to get some sparking and some arcing. And I think maybe I wasn't pushing down hard enough for this thing to grab now that I look at it. So we'll be good to go, and I'll be able to put this back inside the board and then solder these tabs, and away we go. All right, guys, a couple updates. I had ordered these tin snips from Amazon as a backup just in case these Dynamite ones didn't work. So these Toolmac 8-inch, pretty cheap, and they work really good. They're super smooth for cutting through the metal, nickel, 0.2 millimeter nickel tabs if you need it. I do like the Dynamites because they're a little bit smaller, and the curve helps you create that template that we created earlier. All right, today we're gonna get through and finish this pack up. We had spot welded the cells, and this is also some fabric tape that I use from Amazon. It works really nice, doesn't leave any sticky adhesive residue, and it's gonna cover any of these exposed tabs when we put this thing back into the skateboard. Amazon again. All right. Can never be too safe with lithium batteries. These have been stored in this lithium bag. Overall, I'm okay. I'm pleased with it. I did a bunch of spot welds on each one. A little bit more than what they typically do, but I just like the reassurance that I don't have to go back in and worry about these tabs coming off. So we're going to be putting this thing back together to make sure the positive and negatives are correctly aligned. Our positive ends have the insulating rings on them and also are marked by the positive indicator on the battery. Positive is going to go on the outside for bank 12. Negative tab is going to go inside that tab. I'm just going to slide right on in because our template is just perfect. These tabs are going to go back in their spots. I know we cut them, but still half of them will still pop through the holes. And then we'll glue them with some like silicone glue, but they'll pop right back in for the most part. Now what we'll do is, previously I had used a Hakko desoldering gun in the video, but I ended up actually buying a Weller. I'll pull it out here. Just because these solder tabs are just so big and fat, I ended up getting this professional Weller soldering iron just because it has this big pad on it. And I can really heat these up really nice and get a nice layer of solder on it. And I use this to remove a lot of the solder to begin with, along with the solder sucker at the same time. Because just a normal soldering iron tip is just so small and there's no surface area. So this was again, Amazon. This is a Weller D550. And I think it was like 45 bucks with the case, 48 bucks with the case. And so all in here, you know, it's not too bad of for what you're doing. You know, it's definitely cheaper than investing in a new battery pack if you're up for the challenge. A new battery pack is going to run you about $800 all in for this thing. Let's see, batteries were about 35 shipped. Desoldering gun's pretty pricey, but these things, this was like 50, so you're like up to 85. You're gonna get one of these EBL chargers because you're gonna be charging the cell to match the state of the battery cells. You'll want to definitely make sure that everything is equal. So that was one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, that, you know, make sure you check your voltages before you disassemble the whole pack, because you're going to want to charge up the new cells to equal whatever that voltage is. If you do end up, you know, the nice thing about the EBL is that you can discharge there's a discharge slot here, so you can discharge the cell to basically narrow it down to the similar voltages that you're within for the rest of the battery grouping. For this, I charge the whole cell up to 100%. I'm charging the cells I'm replacing it to 100%. The only danger is working with 100% state of charge cells is a little bit more riskier in terms of if you accidentally short circuit it, you can have a huge issue. I know in the industry, if you're able to discharge the cells down to like less than 25%, the risk of a thermal event or a short circuit are a lot lower if you're able to work on lower state of charge cells. But I like to live on the wild side, so I was working at 100% charge. And that just makes it easier for me when I put these things in. So like I said, I'm going to be smoothing a nice thin layer of solder here to heat up. And then I'm going to bend this tab down. And then I'm going to put a layer of solder over this as well and sandwich it in. You don't want to bend these things back and forth too often because they're thin. You know, they're going to get worn if you exercise them like that, and they could snap off. So I'm going to get my Weller plugged in here, and I'm going to get actually probably, yeah, I'm going to get the Weller, I'm going to get my soldering spool, and then turn on my fume extractor. Alright, let's disconnect some cords here. I've got a BVX 100 fume extractor with this big long arm on it. It's pretty cool. Let's position this camera a little bit better. This camera is hanging from a mount that's kind of a little bit wobbly. So be mindful of how the packs lay out, because it's a positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So just make sure you're looking at the symbols on the battery board, and you're double checking all the cells are going in the right direction, that you've already spot welded. I gotta get this fume extractor closer or the battery closer. Okay guys, it's not pretty, but this Weller really helps with this, to be able to get the solder in the sides and in the top and the crevices. And you know, I think that's the best we're gonna be able to do. If I was to do it again, I'd probably cut the tab in half before I soldered it. That way I could pour solder over it a lot easier than trying to get into these ends and these crevices. So I'm going to smooth this out, then we'll tape it up, and then we'll put it back in. Alright guys, after smoothing this out with my solder sucker, we've got solder all the way around inside the lips on the sides, and I think it's the best we're going to get it. It's not pretty, but I think next round what I would do is I'd cut these tabs maybe in half before I fold them over, and then I could overlap the solder on top of them, and it would adhere probably a lot better than trying to sneak in solder on the sides and melt it from the top down. But we're locked in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of black silicone adhesive over these, just for good measure. Stuff makes a mess, but black adhesive sealant. Oh man. Okay. Tape all this up. Let these things dry, and then we'll put everything back together. Alright guys, before we put all this back together, there's one little thing I'd like to fix. And it's to make a little notch right on the side, under the weather stripping, because these wires just get pinched to smithereens. So we'll make a little notch, give them a little place to hide. And then we'll be good to go. There's a little notch here. That's the problem. This thing's got a notch for one side of the battery LEDs, but the other side doesn't. So we'll just make it work. Alright, I'm going to put this thing back in together, and then we'll be good to roll. I'll test it out. I'll power it up anyway. So here's the little notch that it has for this battery, for this LED strip. It can hide in there. But this one on this side just gets pinched. So I'm going to make a little spot in the battery tray, a little notch, just for it to be able to escape, maybe with some X-Acto knife. Or, even better, maybe I can use a little pair of cutters. It's a very small notch, just so the wires have somewhere to go, and it'll be underneath the weather stripping, so I'm not too concerned about it. Okay, that's good. That's good. There you go, little buddy. Now you got a place to call home. I might even, I don't know if I could put tape in there. Probably is going to be too thick with everything. So that'll go in there. Let me move it out of the way right now. I'll put everybody in that spot once I get the battery in. Nice. Okay. See, that's all they had to do was make a little notch for the wires, and they wouldn't get smashed. Where'd they go? There they are. That's a nice clicking noise. All right. I got a little notch now. Perfect. Come on, stretch. Stretch. Why are they so short all of a sudden? Ugh. They shrink. Just gotta pull them tight, I guess, huh? Ugh. Well, that's not good. Something happened. Get back in your home. I'll move this thing out of the way. What happened here? Man, it's just so tight. I could barely reach. Come on. What the heck happened here? Man, it's just so tight. Push the batteries back a little bit, maybe. Okay, they're all the way back. There. That did it. But man, these things, these LED strips, just the wiring on them just gets smashed. Right there. Right at the battery pack. There's no notch for them on this side either. Or is there? Did I miss it the whole time? Is there a notch there? There's no way they're gonna fit that angle though. It's too far. Ugh. Ridiculous. Save that project for another day, extending them and then rerouting them. I don't want to do that. I'm done. All right. Let's connect these things up. Charger connection here. Power button, so tiny, so tiny. You put silicone on it because I don't know, there's tabs, or I don't know if the tabs broke off or whatever. All right. Ooh, that seems like that clip is not. I'm gonna put some black silicone adhesive on this when we get done. Over those things. Over that thing. All right, moment of truth. I get my remote. Oh, actually, I gotta put this thing back on, huh? All right, guys, we got everything back in, and I did power it up off screen, and I want to mention something. Okay, the battery percent on this is just not calibrated right. It's showing 57%, but I'm going to go into the Mboards. We're going to go to battery data, and we're going to see bank 12 in the green. All the other red ones are just a little bit over 4.2, so it just does that. But we have success in bank 12. We're back on. The one thing that I was trying to figure out is after I put everything back in, the board was not powering up. I had correct voltage, I checked continuity, I checked my power switch continuity, and in order to kickstart this thing, I had to plug it into the charger. Once I plugged it into the charger and the charger started running, then this thing came alive. So something woke it up, So you may need, after you do all of this, you may need to plug it into the charger just to get it powered back on, even if the batteries are fully charged. So what I'll do is I'll run this board, even though it says 57%, I know the cells are completely charged, so this will have to be run down to 0, or at least until the battery data, the battery cells get down to like 2.7 or so, 2.8 volts, and then the board shuts down. So we'll run it. It's raining right now, but I'll be getting it back up to calibration. But here you go. That's how you replace a battery bank. And best luck to y'all out there. Catch you next time. Later, skater.